The vending machine pretzel tasted like cardboard and regret, but at 2:47 a.m. in the air traffic control tower, it was the only thing keeping me awake. My name is Colton Hayes, and I've been guiding planes safely through Midwestern skies for 15 years. Tonight felt different, though. Something was eating at me, gnawing like a hungry rat in my chest. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The family group chat had been buzzing all evening. My wife, Mira, kept sending photos from her girls' night out. Innocent enough, except for that last selfie where someone's bare, masculine arm was clearly wrapped around her shoulders. When I texted asking who the mystery man was, she'd laughed it off with a string of crying, laughing emojis. "Just Derek from the architecture firm," she'd typed back. "You're so paranoid, Colton." But Derek was gay, married to his partner for 3 years. I knew because Mira had complained about missing their wedding for a work conference. My gut twisted tighter than airplane cables in a storm. The shift ended at 6 a.m., and I drove home through the gray February dawn to our modest 2-story house on Maple Street. The neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, where secrets lasted about as long as fresh snow in spring. I found Mira already in bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. She stirred when I entered, giving me that practiced smile that used to make my heart skip but now felt rehearsed. "How was work, honey?" she asked, her voice thick with fake sleep. "Same as always. Kept planes from crashing into each other." I studied her face in the dim morning light filtering through our bedroom curtains. "How was girls' night?" "Oh, you know. Linda complained about her divorce. Sarah talked about her new diet. The usual drama." She rolled over, presenting me with her back. "I'm exhausted. Can we talk later?" The house felt colder than the outside air. I made coffee in our kitchen, staring out at the frost-covered yard where we'd once talked about planting a garden. Those dreams seemed as lifeless as the winter grass now. Over the next few days, I noticed things. Little things that individually meant nothing but together painted a picture I didn't want to see. Mira started working late more often. She bought new underwear, the expensive kind she usually reserved for special occasions. Her phone was always face down now, and she'd developed a habit of taking it with her to the bathroom. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. I was looking for our insurance papers in Mira's purse. She'd offered to handle the car registration renewal, when my fingers found a crumpled hotel receipt. The Lakeside Inn 2 nights ago, the same night she'd claimed to be at her sister's place across town. My hands shook as I photographed the receipt with my phone. The room had been paid for in cash, but the date and time were clear as daylight. While I'd been at work, guiding aircraft through the darkness, my wife had been at a cheap motel with someone. That someone, I discovered an hour later, was my own brother. Our shared cloud account, something we'd set up years ago for convenience, became my window into hell. Mira had been sloppy, backing up text messages she probably thought were private. The conversation thread between her and Tanner, my younger brother, read like a bad romance novel mixed with a pornographic screenplay. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again," one message read. "Your husband is such a bore." "When are you leaving him?" came Tanner's reply. "Soon. He suspects nothing." "God, the way you make me scream." I stopped reading and ran to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before I threw up everything in my stomach. The pretzel from last night's shift came up tasting even worse than it had going down. Tanner. My baby brother, the one I'd helped through college, the one who'd been best man at my wedding, the one who'd looked me in the eye just last Sunday at Mom's dinner table and asked how married life was treating me. If misery had a brand manager, it would definitely be my wife. I spent the rest of the night reading through months of messages, watching my marriage dissolve in real time through text bubbles and emoji hearts. They'd been meeting at the Lakeside Inn twice a week for 3 months. They'd used my credit card to pay for dinners. They'd laughed about how clueless I was, how easy it was to fool the boring air traffic guy. By morning, I'd made a decision. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a real game looked like. Friday morning arrived with the kind of bitter cold that makes your lungs ache. I called in sick to work, the first time in 2 years, and used the Find My Phone feature to track Mira's location. She'd told me she had client meetings all day, but her phone showed she was at Tanner's apartment complex across town. The drive over gave me time to think, to let the anger crystallize into something harder and more focused. Tanner lived in one of those new developments where all the buildings looked identical, where young professionals with more money than sense paid premium rent for granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. I parked across the street and waited. 2 hours later, they emerged together, Mira wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. They were laughing about something, her hand resting on his arm with casual intimacy that made my chest feel like it was caving in. They climbed into Tanner's company van. He worked for a logistics firm and was allowed to take the vehicle home for emergency calls. I followed them at a distance, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. The Lakeside Inn sat on the outskirts of town, a faded motor lodge that rented rooms by the hour to people who couldn't afford better or couldn't risk being seen somewhere nicer. I watched them check in, saw Tanner's hand slide down to squeeze my wife's ass as they walked to room 12. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Then I got out, walked to Tanner's van, and used my house key to carve a deep scratch along the driver's side door. The metal screamed against metal, a sound that felt incredibly satisfying. Under his windshield wiper, I left a note written on the back of a gas station receipt. Hope it was worth it. Your loving brother. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down was walking her ancient poodle and saw the whole thing. She even took a picture with her phone, probably thinking she was witnessing some random act of vandalism. I waved at her cheerfully and drove home. The call came an hour later. What the hell is wrong with you? Mira's voice was shrill with rage. You scratched Tanner's van. Mrs. Patterson sent me the photo. Did I? I kept my voice level, almost bored. That's weird. I've been home all day. Maybe you should ask your boyfriend who he's been pissing off lately. Don't you dare! Don't I dare what, Mira? Don't I dare find out my wife is screwing my brother? Don't I dare care that you've been using our money to pay for your little love nest? Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. We need to talk, she said finally. Yeah, we do. But first, let me ask you something. When you were moaning his name in that shitty motel room, did you think about me at all? Or were you too busy planning how to spend my paycheck on your next romantic getaway? She hung up. That evening, Mira came home with Tanner in tow. My brother looked exactly like he always had. Sandy hair, easy smile, the kind of guy who'd never had to work hard for anything in his life. But now I saw him differently. Now I saw the snake behind the charm. Colton, he said, extending his hand like we were meeting for the first time. We need to clear the air. I looked at his hand, then back at his face. The only thing that needs clearing is you, out of my house. Look, this is complicated. No, it's really not. I stepped closer, close enough to smell my wife's perfume on his clothes. You're sleeping with my wife. She's sleeping with you. The only complicated part is deciding whether to kick your ass first or just throw you both out on the street. Mira moved between us, her chin raised in that defiant way I'd once found attractive. Colton, stop being dramatic. We're all adults here. Adults? I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. Adults don't sneak around behind people's backs. Adults don't use their husband's credit card to pay for hotel rooms where they cheat with his brother. You went through my phone, she accused. Your phone? Honey, it's our shared cloud account. You've been backing up your private texts for months. If you wanted privacy, maybe you should have learned how technology works before you started your little affair. Tanner's face had gone pale. Colton, man. It just happened. We didn't plan this. Bullshit. I've read the messages, Tanner. 3 months of planning. 3 months of laughing at the boring husband while you spent my money on cheap motels and cheaper thrills. The conversation devolved from there. Voices raised, accusations flew, and by the end of it, Mira had made her position crystal clear. She wanted a divorce, she wanted the house, and she wanted me to be reasonable about the whole thing. Reasonable? I stared at her. You want me to be reasonable while you move your boyfriend into my house and take half my stuff? It doesn't have to be ugly, Colton. I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and my brother, standing together in my living room like they owned the place. Maybe they thought they did. You're right, I said quietly. It doesn't have to be ugly, but it's going to be. That night, after they left together in Tanner's scratched van, I sat in my empty house and planned their destruction. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one they'd never forget. The next morning brought a lawyer's letter. Mira wanted the house, alimony, and half of everything I'd worked for over the past 8 years. She was claiming emotional cruelty and irreconcilable differences. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd been cheating with my brother for 3 months was claiming I was emotionally cruel. Hell hath no fury like a woman who wants your house for her boyfriend. I spent the weekend compiling evidence. Screenshots of text messages, copies of hotel receipts, GPS data from our shared phone plan showing exactly when and where they'd been meeting. I organized it all into neat folders on my computer, building a case that would make any divorce lawyer weep with joy. But I didn't want a lawyer. I wanted justice. And justice, I'd learned, was something you had to take for yourself. Monday morning, I made my first move. I called Tanner's boss at the logistics company, a man named Frank Morrison, who'd been running the business for 20 years and had zero tolerance for employees who misused company property. Frank, this is Colton Hayes, Tanner's brother. I need to report some misuse of company vehicles. I sent him the photos Mrs. Patterson had taken, along with GPS data showing Tanner's van at the Lakeside Inn during work hours on multiple occasions. I also included screenshots of text messages where Tanner bragged about using the company van for his personal, romantic adventures. Frank called me back within an hour. Jesus Christ, Colton. I'm sorry about your situation, but I can't have employees using company vehicles for this kind of thing. Tanner's suspended pending a full investigation. Strike one. Next, I turned my attention to Mira's interior design business. She worked as a freelance contractor for several architectural firms around town, including the one where Derek supposedly worked. I'd done some digging and discovered that Derek had left the firm 6 months ago to start his own practice in Denver. So, who was the mysterious arm in her selfie? A little more detective work revealed it belonged to Marcus Webb, a married architect with 3 kids and a reputation for being a family man. I wondered how his wife would feel about her husband's extracurricular activities. I didn't have to wonder long. I created a fake email account and sent Mrs. Webb some interesting photos I'd found on Mira's social media, photos where Marcus's distinctive watch and wedding ring were clearly visible on the arm wrapped around my wife. The fallout was spectacular. Marcus's wife confronted him at work, causing a scene that had the whole firm buzzing. When the dust settled, Marcus was looking for a new job, and Mira had lost her biggest client. Strike two. But I was just getting started. The holding pattern was Tanner's favorite bar, a dive on the outskirts of town where the beer was cheap and the clientele asked no questions. I knew he'd be there Friday night. It was his weekly ritual, his chance to play the big shot for whatever barfly would listen to his stories. I arrived early and waited in the parking lot, my old baseball bat in the passenger seat. When Tanner stumbled out around midnight, clearly drunk and alone, I was ready for him. "Hey, little brother," I called out, stepping out of my car. He squinted at me in the dim light from the bar's neon sign. "Colton? What are you doing here?" "Thought we should have a talk, man to man, brother to brother." Look, I know you're upset. Upset? I hefted the bat, testing its weight. Tanner, I'm way past upset. I'm in a whole new emotional territory now. His eyes fixed on the bat, and suddenly he looked a lot more sober. Colton, don't do anything stupid. Stupid? Like sleeping with my brother's wife? Like using his credit card to pay for hotel rooms? Like laughing about what a boring loser he is? I stepped closer. That kind of stupid? I can explain. No need. I walked past him to his van, the same van with the scratch I'd put there a week ago. See, the thing about explanations is they don't fix anything. They don't undo the betrayal. They don't give me back the 3 months you spent sleeping with my wife behind my back. I raised the bat and brought it down hard on his windshield. The glass spider-webbed but didn't shatter. Safety glass, designed to protect the occupants from exactly this kind of thing. Colton, stop! Tanner lunged toward me, but I spun around and shoved him hard. He stumbled backward, tripped over the curb, and went down hard on the asphalt. You took my wife, I said, standing over him. I'm taking your dignity. I went back to work on the van. The side mirrors came off with satisfying cracks. The headlights exploded in showers of plastic and glass. By the time I was done, the vehicle looked like it had been through a war zone. Several people had come out of the bar to watch the show. Someone was filming with their phone. I could see the screens glow in the darkness. Perfect. I wanted this recorded. You want to know what your boyfriend is really like? I called out to the small crowd. Ask him how he pays for his dates. Spoiler alert, it's not his money. Tanner tried to get up, but I put my foot on his chest and pushed him back down. Not hard enough to hurt him, just hard enough to keep him there. Tell them, Tanner. Tell them how you've been using company property to cheat with married women. Tell them how you spent your brother's money on cheap motels and cheaper thrills. Colton, please. Please what? Please don't tell everyone what a piece of shit you are. Too late for that, little brother. I dropped the bat beside him and walked back to my car. As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, still sitting on the ground next to his destroyed van, surrounded by strangers with phones. The video was online within an hour. By morning, it had been shared dozens of times across local social media groups. The comments were brutal. Isn't that the Hayes boy? Always knew he was trash. Feel bad for the brother. Can't trust anyone these days. That's what you get for messing with family. Strike 3. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The video of Tanner's humiliation had been viewed over 1,000 times by Monday morning. Local Facebook groups were buzzing with gossip, and suddenly everyone in town knew the Hayes family's dirty laundry. Mom called me crying, begging me to work things out with Mira and Tanner. Dad left a voicemail telling me I'd gone too far and needed to act like a man. Act like a man? I was acting like a man whose family had betrayed him in the worst possible way. Mira showed up at the air traffic control tower Tuesday evening, right as my shift was ending. Security tried to stop her, but she pushed past them into the control room, her face flushed with rage and humiliation. You destroyed his van, she screamed, not caring that my coworkers were watching. You cost him his job. You're ruining everything. I finished logging my last flight, shut down my station, and turned to face her. I'm ruining everything? That's rich, coming from the woman who's been sleeping with my brother for 3 months. Keep your voice down, she hissed, suddenly aware of our audience. Why? Embarrassed? Funny how that works. You weren't embarrassed when you were texting him about how boring I was. You weren't embarrassed when you used my credit card to pay for your little romantic getaways. My supervisor, Jim Rodriguez, stepped forward. Colton, maybe you should take this conversation somewhere private. No, Jim. I think everyone should know exactly what kind of woman my wife is. I looked around the room at my colleagues, men and women I'd worked with for years. See, Mira here has been having an affair with my brother, using company property, my money, and our shared hotel loyalty points to do it. Mira's face went white. You bastard. I'm the bastard? I'm not the one who broke marriage vows. I'm not the one who lied and cheated and stole. I'm just the guy who found out about it and decided to do something about it." She turned and fled, her heels clicking frantically against the linoleum floor. The control room was silent for a long moment. "Jesus, Colton," Jim said finally. "I'm sorry, man. Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for her, because this is just the beginning." That night, I made my next move. I'd been saving the best evidence for last, a series of text messages between Mira and her best friend Lindsay discussing their plan to teach Colton a lesson about taking his wife for granted. It turned out this whole affair wasn't just about passion or love or any of the usual reasons people cheat. It was about revenge. Mira and Lindsay had cooked up the scheme together, with Lindsay pushing my wife toward Tanner as a way to hurt me. Why? Because 3 years ago, when Lindsay had applied for a job at the airport, I'd been part of the hiring committee that turned her down. She'd been underqualified, had a history of job hopping, and frankly, I'd never liked her influence on Mira. But apparently, she'd taken the rejection personally. Very personally. The text messages laid it all out. Lindsay: "He thinks he's so much better than everyone else. Time to knock him down a peg." Mira: "I don't know if I can do this. He's my husband." Lindsay: "He's a boring loser who thinks he owns you. Tanner's cute, he's available, and he's right there. What's the worst that could happen?" Mira: "What if he finds out?" Lindsay: "He won't. He's too stupid and too trusting. By the time he figures it out, you'll be free and rich from the divorce." Reading those messages felt like being punched in the gut repeatedly. My wife hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been manipulated into it by someone with a personal grudge, someone who'd used our marriage as a weapon to settle an old score. I always knew I was the villain in someone's story. I just didn't know it was hers. But now I did, and now I was going to do something about it. I spent the rest of the week preparing for what I privately called the nuclear option. I compiled every piece of evidence I had: the affair, the financial fraud, Lindsay's manipulation, Tanner's misuse of company property, even Marcus Webb's involvement. I organized it all into a comprehensive presentation, complete with screenshots, receipts, and timeline. Then I waited for the perfect moment to deploy it. That moment came the following Sunday, at the annual Founders' Day festival in the town square. It was the biggest social event of the year, where everyone who was anyone showed up to see and be seen. Local businesses set up booths, the high school band played patriotic songs, and the mayor gave a speech about community values and family traditions. Perfect. I'd volunteered to help with the technical setup: projectors, sound system, microphones. Nobody questioned why I needed access to the main stage's equipment. After all, I was just the boring air traffic controller, reliable old Colton who never caused any trouble. The festival was in full swing when I made my move. Mayor Thompson had just finished his speech about the importance of trust and honesty in small communities. The crowd was relaxed, happy, full of barbecue and beer. I climbed onto the stage, tapped the microphone to get everyone's attention, and smiled. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colton Hayes, and I have a story to tell you about trust, honesty, and family values." The crowd looked puzzled but interested. A few people I recognized waved. My parents, sitting near the front with Tanner and Mira, looked confused. They probably thought I was going to make some kind of public apology, try to smooth things over for the sake of family harmony. They were wrong. 3 months ago, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the festival speakers, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with my brother. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's between us, right? Family business. But here's the thing. It's not just family business when it involves fraud, manipulation, and a conspiracy to destroy an innocent person's life. The murmur that went through the crowd was like wind through wheat. I could see people pulling out their phones, some to record, others to text their friends who weren't there. See, I thought this was just about two people who couldn't keep their hands off each other. But it turns out It was actually about revenge. Revenge against me, orchestrated by someone I trusted, someone who'd been in my home, eaten at my table, and smiled to my face while plotting my destruction. I clicked the remote in my hand, and the first slide appeared on the large screen behind me. It was a text message conversation between Mira and Lindsay, blown up large enough for everyone to read. Lindsay: "He rejected my job application. Time to make him pay." Mira: "I can't do this to Colton. He's a good husband." Lindsay: "Good husbands don't hold their wives back. You deserve better than a boring air traffic controller." The crowd's murmur grew louder. I could see Lindsay in the audience, her face pale with shock and growing horror. "That's Lindsay Chen, by the way," I said, pointing her out. "Mira's best friend, the woman who convinced my wife to destroy our marriage as payback for a job rejection 3 years ago." The next slide showed financial records, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, all paid for with my credit card while I was at work. This is how they funded their affair. My money, my credit cards, even my hotel loyalty points. They laughed about it in their text messages, called me too stupid to notice and too boring to matter. I could see Mira trying to push through the crowd toward the stage, but people were blocking her way, too fascinated by the unfolding drama to let her pass. "But wait, there's more," I continued, clicking to the next slide. "Because it wasn't just my brother. Turns out my wife has been quite busy." The screen now showed photos of Mira with Marcus Webb, the married architect. In one particularly damning image, they were kissing outside a restaurant downtown. That's Marcus Webb, for those who know him. Married father of 3, pillar of the community. At least, that's what his wife thought until last week. I could see Marcus in the crowd, his face red with embarrassment and anger. His wife wasn't with him, probably still dealing with her own betrayal. Now I know what some of you are thinking. This is cruel. This is public humiliation. This is wrong. I paused, looking out over the crowd. And you're absolutely right. It is cruel. It is humiliating. It is wrong. Just like adultery. Just like fraud. Just like conspiracy to destroy someone's life for petty revenge. Tanner finally managed to push his way to the front of the stage. "Colton, stop this. You're embarrassing the whole family." I looked down at my brother, this man I'd once loved and trusted, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Embarrassing the family? Tanner, you slept with my wife. For 3 months, using my money and laughing about what a loser I was. You want to talk about embarrassing the family? He tried to climb onto the stage, but I'd positioned myself well. When he grabbed the edge of the platform, I simply stepped on his fingers, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make him let go and stumble backward into the crowd. "The thing is," I continued, turning back to the audience, "I could have handled this quietly. I could have filed for divorce, split our assets, and moved on with my life. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to take everything I had and leave me broken and alone." The final slide appeared on the screen, a compilation of the cruelest text messages, the ones where Mira and Tanner discussed how pathetic I was, how easy I was to fool, how much they enjoyed spending my money on their affair. So I decided to give them what they gave me: public humiliation, financial ruin, the knowledge that everyone they know, everyone they work with, everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people they are. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Mira wanted a divorce? She's got one. She wanted the house? Too bad. I sold it yesterday to a nice young couple from Des Moines. She wanted alimony? Hard to get alimony when you're the one who committed adultery and financial fraud. I could see Mira near the stage now, tears streaming down her face. "Colton, please," she called out. "I'm sorry I made a mistake." I looked down at her, this woman I'd once loved enough to marry, and felt absolutely nothing. "A mistake?" I repeated into the microphone. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. A mistake is missing an anniversary dinner. 3 months of sleeping with my brother while spending my money and planning to take everything I own? That's not a mistake, Mira. That's a choice. Your choice. I clicked the remote one last time, and the screen went black. I want everyone here to remember this moment, I said, my voice carrying across the silent festival grounds. Remember that actions have consequences. Remember that betrayal has a price. And remember that sometimes the boring guy everyone underestimates is the one you should have been afraid of all along. I set the microphone down and walked off the stage. The crowd parted in front of me like the Red Sea, everyone staring as I made my way to the parking lot. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting, shouting, crying, the sound of people demanding answers. But I was done with answers. I was done with explanations. I was done with all of it. I drove home to my empty house one last time. Tomorrow, the new owners would take possession. Tomorrow, I'd start my new job in Denver, a position I'd been quietly negotiating for weeks. Tomorrow, I'd begin the next chapter of my life. But tonight, I stood on my porch and threw my wedding ring into the yard where Mira had once wanted to plant a garden. It landed somewhere in the brown grass, lost among the faded leaves and broken dreams. I got in my car and drove toward the highway as the sun set behind me, painting the sky the color of fire. In my rearview mirror, I could see the lights of the town growing smaller and smaller until they disappeared entirely. Sometimes the villain wins. Tonight, I sleep just fine.